We're at the White House Tribal Nations Summit in Washington, D.C. at the Department of the Interior. I'm with the distinguished Chief Hoskin, Chuck Hoskin from the Cherokee Nation, and distinguished Kim Teehee, the delegate-elect to Congress from the Cherokee Nation. So, Chief, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed today. You testified this month earlier about getting Kim seated. Tell us how you think that went, the hearing.
I think it went well. I mean, you go into something like that as a tribal leader, mindful that it's always a steep hill when you're in the Congress of the United States. But this was the Rules Committee. This is a powerful committee. I think we delivered the message we needed to deliver in terms of why seat Kim Teehee, which is incredibly qualified, but the treaty guarantees us a seat. And then we answered questions. There were 4 questions. Questions about rural representation, questions about why now. It's been 187 years. The questions down to the mechanics of how Kim might be seated. We've welcomed those questions. We've actually welcomed them for the past 3 years. But to do it on the record, for the nation to see and for Congress to develop a record, I think it was very effective. I feel and felt very optimistic after, and I still feel optimistic. I think we are on the verge of the House of Representatives doing the right thing.
It really appeared that there was great bipartisan support.
There was. I mean, you have the chair of the committee, Congressman McGovern, who created this opportunity, but with the support of the ranking member, Tom Cole. And then, that's obviously a mix of Republicans and Democrats on the Rules Committee. All of their questions were really oriented not towards should this be stopped, but how does this get implemented? I think by the end, there really was this bipartisan consensus that it's not a question of if we do this, it's a question of how we do it, and there was a good substantive discussion that happened.
And Kim, I'm from Michigan, so I knew Dale Kilby, Congressman from Flint. I'm from Grand Rapids, though. You work for Congressman Kilby. And how will that experience help you as a delegate to Congress?
I think anyone who has had some experience with the institution of the United States House of Representatives will appreciate that staff help make things move and keep things going. The processes that one has to go through to make sure that the members are engaged directly, that they have the background that's necessary so that they can engage at a member level. But the process is critically important here. And so that's been one of the impediments, frankly, in seating the delegate, which is there's not a process established for seating a delegate that's already established by law. In our case, it's a treaty, which is the Supreme Law of the land. And so getting over that hurdle and getting it assigned to a committee, we had to, figure out which committee even had jurisdiction over this particular issue. And, we thought a few committees, and we finally landed on House Rules Committee. And so, but getting the support of the chairman of that committee, the ranking member, Tom Cole, who's a Chickasaw citizen, but having an historic hearing. This is the first time, I think, in my lifetime that I've seen a committee have a hearing on a particular tribe's treaty right, and to have each of the panelists, each of the congressmen express support for this treaty right. I think it's not a matter of if, but when. When's it going to happen?
And you mentioned Congressman Cole, and I got a kick out of the fact that the treaty actually was approved by the Senate. He kind of laughed about the idea that the Senate telling the House what to do. But we know representation matters. How does it, using that, and I'm going to ask both of you, but Chief, representation matters. Why is it important to have Kim seated?
Well, think about what we're doing here at the White House Tribal Nations. So we're talking about policy, we're talking about things that the United States needs to do to make good on various other promises and trust responsibility. Today we talked about language preservation. I mean, imagine having someone in the House of Representatives who really doesn't have to be sort of educated on those issues, who has lived those issues, and can go in and advocate for the side of Congress that we do in any country, which is to do what we can outside of Congress to try to steer them in a good direction to avoid bad policy. And having someone that sits on a committee, which Kim will do as a delegate, voting on committee, introducing legislation, seeing it all the way through to the final point of the final passage. She wouldn't be voting on that, but all the work done before then means that whether it's appropriations, whether it's federal policy surrounding language preservation, whether it's the all-important healthcare policy, is just so important in Indian country. Just having someone on the inside to be an advocate, it adds another champion, but it really adds somebody that's a unique champion in terms of how she sort of has been raised, literally been raised, how she's lived her life. She's a tribal citizen representing the Cherokee Nation. It's going to help all of Indian country, really.
Yes, I agree. And I can remember when, well, she's now Secretary Holland, but when Deb Holland first became Congresswoman and Sharice Davis dated, and Sharice said that they spent their first year trying to educate their colleagues as to Indians 101. And I just think that's really important. So how do you respond to that? Representation matters.
Absolutely. You know, for far too long, Indian tribes in this country have only had a handful of champions. They bear the burden of all the federally recognized tribes in this country in getting their issues addressed through Congress. I've had the privilege of watching Senator Inouye, Dale Kildee, Ben Nyhurst Campbell in action. Modern day heroes include Congressman Cole, right? Congresswoman Sharice Davis. We have in my lifetime, not to be dramatic about it, but in my lifetime, the most natives we've had in Congress at a single period of time. And representation matters. So it's important to add a seat at the table and have that seat be filled by a treaty-based delegate. And so that we can have a seat at the table whenever formulating laws that impact uniquely us. But we also know, too, that this treaty right, while Cherokee Nation is the recipient of it, would also more broadly impact all of Indian country. And I think that's why we've been able to galvanize so successfully support throughout the country of Indian tribes supporting the seating of our delegate.
Yeah, and some of the conversation I heard yesterday, and the press wasn't allowed in the prep meeting, but outside in some of the literature I've seen, there's really the term advanced appropriations as it relates to healthcare in Indian country. Can you respond to that? Why it's so important?
Absolutely. So advanced appropriations is actually something that Chief Hoskin and Cherokee Nation has really been an advocate for. You know, we are in a environment where Congress is routinely passing their appropriations funding bills by continuing resolution, and we're always on the cusp of government shutdowns. That's being discussed now, right? We've got the continuing resolution that's expiring next month, and what that means for tribes is we have to make contingency plans just in case there's a government shutdown. That kind of planning is disruptive of tribal governments that have few enough resources as it is to have to then try to decide how are we going to keep our nurses employed, doctors employed, our law enforcement employed. Advanced appropriations would eliminate that worry and allow tribes to have an additional fiscal year of funding, right? And so there's bipartisan support to at least have advanced appropriations in the Indian Health Service system. Really, it needs to be expanded, but we'll take that to start because we need to look after the needs, the healthcare needs of our citizens, especially our elders and those who are the most vulnerable of the population. Advanced appropriations would allow us to do that and give us some certainty with the funding so that it wouldn't have to undergo disruption that can be caused by continuing resolutions and potential for government shutdowns.
And Chief, I was at the Cherokee Nation's capital in June, and I went through the clinic. You guys can be very proud of that. So what do you want to add to this discussion of advanced appropriations?
Well, it is key. I mean, think about the fact that when these government shutdowns happen, and they do happen from time to time, the rest of federal health care, as I understand it, continues on because the nation understands it's a priority. My goodness, Indian health care ought to be at the same level, so we have to make sure we have a voice that advocates for that. And then, the facility you were in is actually a product of a wonderful federal Indian healthcare policy known as the Joint Venture Program. That program, and it's not on advanced appropriations, but that program is a winner. It's a winner for the country and for Indian country. We need more of that. Having somebody like Kim Teehee, who comes from the Cherokee Nation, knows it works, knows the experience you had, wants that for all of Indian country. country. She'll be a champion for that. We even work it.
Yeah, and you call it it's called a clinic, but to me it looks like a hospital.
Yeah,
But
it's
congratulations on that. Yes. And to our audience, thank you very much, Chi Miigwech, for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské, and we had our distinguished guests, Chief Hoskin and King Teehee. So Chi Miigwech, and we'll see you next week.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.